Encounter, written by Brittany Luby and illustrated by Michelle Goad. The sun rose to light all creation. He woke seagull and moose from their nests. He coaxed mosquito from a long blade of grass. He chuckled as crab retreated inside her shell. When the coastline buzzed with life, sun woke the two legs with a burst of light. This is Fisher. He tried to shoo Sun away by wiggling his toes, so Sun tickled Fisher's knees. Fisher rolled onto his belly, but Sun persisted and gently warmed Fisher's neck. Fisher woke at last to welcome the day ahead. "I will paddle to waters thick with mackerel," he said, and Fisher turned his canoe, loaded his nets, and pushed into the ocean. This is Sailor. He came from away. He tried to block Sun by pulling a cap over his eyes. Sun peeked through the fabric, knit with love. "Wake up, Sailor," Sun whispered. At last Sailor smiled. "Today I will explore unknown lands in a new world." Sailor lowered a boat from the ship, and he rowed towards shore. Both Sun had not traveled far when Fisher and Sailor paddled into the same bay. Fisher knew the bay like the curve of his fingernail, but he did not know Sailor. "Am I dreaming?" Fisher wondered. He rubbed his eyes. Sailor was puzzled too. Perhaps the lands are not so new. Both Sailor and Fisher hesitated, but the tide did not pause. It nudged them inland. Encouraged, they pulled their boats onto the rocky shore. With his canoe secure, Fisher greeted Sailor. "Quay, quay!" Fisher wanted Sailor's eyes open, wide like the jellyfish. "He speaks differently than me," Sailor thought, but he replied, "Salutations!" Sailor wanted Fisher's forehead wrinkle like an earthworm. "We do not sound the same," Fisher thought, and he waved cautiously at the sailor. "We are not so different," squawked the Skeegull who flew overhead. "You both cast long shadows." Sailor tried to explain his journey across the water by drawing it in the sand. As Sailor sketched, his red cap fell to the ground. Fisher laughed, and he imagined Lobster had leapt off of Sailor's head to scramble into the ocean. The wind lifted Fisher's hair. Sailor chuckled. He thought Fisher's hair looked like a horse's tail. "You have much in common," the mosquito buzzed. "You both taste delicious." Sun now directly overhead, and Sailor was getting hungry. His stomach grumbled. Sailor pulled sea bread from his pocket, and he gnawed at the edge before he offered it to Fisher, who took a bite. I would rather chew wood," Fisher thought, and returned to the sea bread. Fisher offered Sailor a handful of sunflower seeds. Sailor popped them into his mouth. Ugh, I would rather eat pebbles. He spat, peppering the ground with unopened seeds. Fisher laughed. You must crack the open shell. Wordlessly, Fisher taught Sailor how to reach the heart of the seed. Mouse was grateful for the crumbs. Lucky me. And Mouse said, I will have this feast. The sun blazed west. Sailor saw sweat beading on Fisher's chest. Does he not burn? Sailor wondered. He's almost bare. Fisher watched sweat race down Sailor's temples from underneath this cap. Is he not boiling? Fisher wondered. He's heavily dressed. Fisher pointed at the waves, and Sailor beamed, and together they jumped in. Crab woke up briefly to admire both swimmers. What fine figures, Crab thought. They each found a shell to suit them. Sailor and Fisher returned to shore, where whistling in the bay alerted them that 2 beluga whales had come to play. Fisher whistled back, and Sailor too. They chased the whales along the shore. Good game, you make a strong pod, the belugas said, and disappeared beneath the waves. Before sun fell, Sailor and Fisher parted with a sleepy smile. Fisher placed tobacco into the fire. He prayed for another friendly encounter and lay down to rest. Sailor returned to the ship. He pulled his straw mat onto the deck, and he wished on a star for fewer chores and another chance to meet Fisher before the long journey home. Moon watched over Sailor and Fisher as they fell asleep, and she shone on their 10 fingers, and she shone on their 10 toes. Moon listened to their 2 hearts beating, bubble, bubble. She heard the beauty of all living things. The end. The encounter.